Hey folks, today I'm going to be making chard, chives, chilli, cheese and onion pinwheels, and all of those vegetables are going to be coming out of my garden. So chard is great because it regrows, so it doesn't matter how much I pick. These plants, oh, you see it's sending a new shoot out now, just there. As you can see, I've got a nice amount of chard from the garden there, and I just need to give this a wash and then chop it up. So the chard's all dripping off there, nicely clean. We can eat the leaves and the stalks. Those of you who watch my channel will know it's my wonder veg. Right, now time to chop. So I've got that in the wok now, and I'm just going to add a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. Let that filter through. And for good measure, a little bit of pepper, black pepper. And some salt. Not too much, just a little bit. There we go. And a few Italian dried mixed herbs, always an essentiality. I'm just going to leave that for now because I need to pick onions, garlic and whatever else I can find to go in this. So as you can see, I've got some onions growing in this pot along with a few other things. I'm just going to take out. So noticeably there are some poppies that have seeded themselves, but they're not very big, but I've got plenty of them. So not the biggest onions, but enough for the recipe. So I've got a spring onion here as well, growing. So amongst the kohlrabi and Swedes, lurking is a tiny garlic. But that will do, that will add a bit of flavour. So I've got the veg in the sink. I'm going to start with the onions. I'm just going to chop them and wash them. All the excess stuff will just go in the compost. If you pick these early enough in spring, you can also chop the stalks up and eat the stalks, but these have gone quite hard and woody now, so I shan't be including those. Here's an example of an onion with a tender stem, so that can just be chopped and used like you would a spring onion, so I shall include that within the recipe too. So that's all the onion, spring onion and garlic chopped up on top of the chard. So I'm just giving my chive a wash through just to get any bits of soil off. They're fairly clean, to be honest, but I'd rather not get grit in it. I'm just roughly chopping the chives. We don't need to take a lot of care on this, but I just don't want any really long pieces, but I think that's pretty much okay. So I've added the chives into the wok. I now need to just get myself a chilli. I've just got one chilli growing at the minute in the conservatory. Lots ready to come on the flowers. Might have to supplement with some dried chilli flakes. So my one little solitary chilli, I'll chop it up anyway. I'm putting the chilli in, seeds and all, and I want there to be a little bit of heat on this. I'm just going to supplement that chilli with a few dry chilli flakes, not too many. I don't want it to be red hot, but I want it to register. That'll do. And then finally I'm just going to add 200 ml of water, just so it can build some steam up. There we go. So lid on and heat on. Okay, I want that on a very low heat. I don't want it frying, I just want it to steam gently. Whoosh. So we can see now when the steam clears that this is breaking down nicely, although it's still quite fibrous in places, so I'm going to let it steam a bit longer. So another 20 minutes has passed. Let's have a look. Good and steamy. Now, yeah, this is now nice and soft, so we're getting ready for the next phase. I'm just going to add a little bit more liquid. I'm now going to add a few porridge oats, unsweetened, and they will bind this together and will absorb the liquid. And that will solidify nicely. So all I need to do now is just put the lid on and just leave it. Okay, you can see now that the water has pretty much been absorbed. So I'm going to leave the lid off. I'm just going to add a little bit of butter into that, stir that in. I'm going to let it cook for another 5 minutes and then I'm turning the heat off. Okay, this is now looking pretty done. So what I need to do now is switch this off and leave it to go cool. So the next phase is to make the pastry. It's pastry time, so I'm going to begin with some plain flour. I need to weigh out 225 grams of this. So use my sieve just to make sure it's not lumpy. There'll be enough here. And that is 226 grams. We can live with 1 gram over. Put my flour into the bowl. Now I need 100 grams of margarine. And there's 107 grams. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this in the microwave for just 10 seconds because it's come out of the fridge and it's really stiff. It'll just make it easier to work with. So I shall add my margarine into the bowl, and you will notice that that's no longer stiff, having just been softened a little bit in the microwave. That makes this job a lot easier now. And what I need to do is to keep messing around with this now until it turns into something that resembles little lumps, and then I push them together to form the pastry. I'll add a little bit of salt and a little bit of pepper. And I need to play around with this. I need to get my hands in here and get dirty, so I'll be back in a little while. So the bowl currently has lots of lumpy little bits in. It just needs to be pressed together now. But what will help me is just a tiny splash of milk. So I shall just add that. So I really only need to add the smallest amount, because if you put too much, then it spoils it. That's enough. I'll just start by mixing it before I get my hands in there again. And it's taking on a nice stiffer constituency now. So I'll put my hands in now and start to push it together, and you'll start to see it form the raw pastry that we're used to seeing. Okay, so the general rule of thumb with pastry is it's half the amount of fat to flour. I've done slightly under half, but only very, very slightly. I was brought up on half. So I'm using a specialist silicone rolling mat made by Okeanu. I've never tried this before. It's meant to be non-stick. We'll see how it goes on. I'm just going to flour my rolling pin a little bit because this is what I was always taught to do by my mum. And what I want to try and do is roll this out into some kind of rectangle. Let's try that. I want it to be as thin as I can do it without it breaking, but I don't want gaps. So now I've got this cutting tool and I'm just going to trim the edges. And down here. And I'm going to reuse this and make another one afterwards with what's left over. So don't worry, no wastage. You know me, I don't like to waste things. So we've got a nice, neat, as you can see there, that's okay, that's fine, piece of pastry. And here we have the chard and mixture from earlier. So what I'm going to do is, using my wooden spoon, I'm going to very delicately, hopefully, spread this across the pastry. I don't want it to be too thick, but it needs to cover everywhere. So this one is now complete, and I've only used a quarter of the chard mixture. What doesn't get used in this and in the next one will just go into another dish. So everything always gets used up. Cheese. And what I want to do is to do this. I love cheese. It's great. You like my jokes? Nah. My kids don't either. So next I want to then get the grated cheese onto the mixture, and I want to give it an even covering, if I can, without having huge lumps. And I'm just spreading it around like so. I don't know how many grams of cheese this is, by the way, you just do it by sight. I think that's fair. Now it's time to roll. And we try and keep it as tight as possible without it breaking the pastry. And yeah, there's going to be a little bit of mess comes off the end. Don't worry about that, we'll tidy it later. And this is why it's called a pinwheel, because of the roll effect. Now before I cut it, I just want to split an egg. There we go. And what I want to do is just separate the white from the yolk. Slotted spoon usually works well for this purpose. Very good. There we go, plop. I'll pop the yolk back in. See, I wasn't yolking. Or was I? I'm going to brush the pastry with the yolk, and that will give it a really lovely brown finish on the outside. And golden, lovely finish. I need a sharp knife for the next bit. Sharp knife, this is the tricky bit. Perfect. Onto the baking tray. Tip it. Ooh. Nearly a disaster, but averted. So it seems to be harder in the middle, where the mixture is thickest. Right, they're not looking too bad. Now they need to go in the oven. I've got the oven on at 200 and I'm going to put these in very shortly when it gets to temperature. Okay, they're going in. So now we play the waiting game, back in 15 minutes. Just listen to that bubble. So there you go, folks. We've got chard, we've got chives, we've got chilli, we've got cheese, and we've got onion in a savoury pinwheel.